to address some issues, and I'd just like to make another statement now. So I am resuming my role as Environment South and Regional Committee now that the investigation relating to a complaint about some cows near a river on my property is complete. The investigation resulted in no enforcement action being taken. However, being the subject of an investigation was a stressful experience to myself and to my family. I'm relieved it's over. Having said that, like all challenging situations in life, there are learnings and opportunities. The bar is continuing to rise for good management practice and management of waterways. As a councillor and a farmer, I will continue to review and improve my farming practices to ensure we are operating at and above good practices. I look forward to returning to work for all the ratepayers of Southland and will not be making any further public comment on this matter. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor. One for public forums, petitions and deputations. There are none. Confirmation of the minutes from the last meeting that we had, which was on the 10th of June. Would someone who was present at that meeting like to move that was the correct record? Seconded by Chairman Bond, thank you. Is there any discussion on that motion? No amendments? I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. No one against? It's carried. Thank you. Through the badges again. Item 1 on our agenda is the Consents Division activity and performance. Sorry, no questions? Are there any questions? No questions. Right. Chairman and Councillors' reports. I don't have one. Councillors? The General Manager, Policy, Planning and Regulatory Services report, item 1, consents team activity.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll pass over to Aurora to take us through the consents report.
Thank you. Hello everyone. So we'll take my report as read. Just for noting, I've noticed that the report has been split into 2 sections. Which I'll comment on. Split it into the past reporting, performance of the consents team, and also looking forward for forecasted activity in the upcoming period. So over the past reporting period, we have had 89 applications lodged. This has been a slight drop-off, and putting it down to the likes of absorbing the freshwater package and uncertain planning framework, plus a forecasted drop in the number of renewals around this time of year. 94 decisions were made, and 5 of those decisions did exceed the timeframes for the reporting periods, which made our timeframe compliance 94%. And 100% of our applications have been processed in-house rather than by external consultants. So now, just turning your attention to forecasted activity moving forward.
Before we move on to that, Aurora, can I offer Aaron congratulations on your appointment as the Consents Team Manager.
Thank you.
I'm not sure that had been announced at the Council before, but
forecasted activity moving forward, a significant portion of our time currently is spent looking at what the essential freshwater package means for the consents team and our community. We are still working out what that looks like in the consent space specifically. We're working across council to put together the implementation package work. The Consents Consultants Working Group has been started back up, had the first forum meeting last week with great success, and we are also undertaking applicant experience research as the survey results that I discussed with you last regulatory meeting, the uptake of those surveys hasn't been as successful as we'd hoped. We also are awaiting an environmental decision on the Wilkins farming appeal, which has not yet been placed. We now take any questions.
Yes, Lloyd. On that, applicant experience and research survey with a low uptake, I'm just wondering whether that's because it's not going to an independent body for that research and it's coming to the council, so is there a reluctance for people to actually fill in the survey or fill it in honestly?
Through you, Mr. Chair, there's probably a number of reasons why we've had poor uptake. To actually address that, we've commissioned, by way of the strategy group, a broader review of customer feedback that's being completed at the moment by an independent consultant who has been liaising with a variety of applicants to actually provide us some early insight. We're also reviewing how the survey information is going out and where it's coming back into to try and alleviate any issues such as the ones that you have just highlighted, Councillor McCowan.
Councillor Stevens.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a query on, well done on the percentage 92%. Just the time you're talking about exceeding timeframes. What timeframe are we looking at?
So all of the applications that were late by 1 day.
So when you talk timeframe, are we talking 3 months or?
Oh, sorry, the 20 working day
20 working
timeframe.
days? Right, because I noticed there's a couple in there that obviously quite historic, those 2017 ones.
Yeah, so when, through you, Mr. Chair, when we're processing applications, we have 20 official processing days. However, timeframe holds can be applied either by council or by the applicant as required when either party had more time to work out what the application is. So that would be the case in this.
So did any of those overtime ones trigger a rebate?
To the best of my knowledge, no, not those ones, because they weren't, didn't meet the regs criteria for the rebate.
Thank you. Councillor Beard.
Yeah, just regarding the of the 89 applications lodged, you indicated 100% have been processed in-house, which is really good in my view. Has it been largely through the lower number of consents that you've received, or the complexity of those consents that have enabled them to stay in-house?
So a bit of both. We have seen the complexity of applications lodged drop off, and I think that's because people have been waiting to see what the Action for Healthy Waterways package means for those more complex applications, and also the lower number of applications that have been coming in the door as yet.
Chairman Horrell.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good to hear that that customer service thing is being further developed. I think it's a really transparent way of operating. It puts more customer focus on what we're doing, and hopefully with the right questions it will give us good feedback for our continuous improvement model that we have in place. The other question was, you mentioned you're looking at the consenting regime with the freshwater announcements. With the recent knowledge that the permitted activity rules will give us till October next year, one, are we going to do with publicity, I guess, and this is possibly not your department, to say that our water and land plan rules will be enforced until then? It'll also give us, I guess, longer time to actually set up an efficient consenting arrangement. And I guess I know there's been quite a bit of interest in the public as to what they have to do. Our own rules are quite robust, and I think we can look forward to good environmental results in the next year while we work through this process.
Through you, Mr Chair, it is absolutely something we're looking at across the wider implementation team and council of what makes not only the consents team but people that are looking to prepare applications. It is helpful that the existing use rights will apply in some cases, mostly to intensive grazing. However, there still will be some implications immediately under the package for consent applications that are coming through the door. And we're working with consultants and applicants on a case-by-case basis to work out what it means for them.
So have we had any applications that actually fall outside the permitted activity rule or not,
Under the proposed plan.
Well, actually even, well, I guess both, because if you're over the 50 hectares, even that's next year, but if you didn't, that only applies if you've been doing it before. If somebody wanted to do something that was outside the scope, I guess that's the question I was trying to ask. Have we had anybody in that situation who applied yet?
Yes, we have. Just in the last week, there has been two applications lodged for intensive winter grazing that fall outside of both Section 20A rights and the permitted activity criteria.
Thank you for that.
And just through you, Mr Chair, just to reiterate, consents, compliance, planning, land and water services and the communication team are developing an implementation approach that will shortly be rolled out to communicate to the community what the NES Section 360 regulations and the broader national policy statement package means and how council is responding to that. That is being led by Lucy Hicks in the policy and planning area of council, and so we are in good shape to actually start communicating how it actually affects the southern community. Of course, we are working that out ourselves at this point of time, so there is a little bit more work to do, but we will be shortly communicating more broadly.
So in conversation with Aurora, we're looking at the agenda for today. She suggested that we have this forecasted activities for her directorate or her area. So that's been included in the agenda today. And so that's in addition to what we used to get before, where we just re-looked at what we've been doing in the past. So I hope that you find that helpful. If you have any suggestions about other matters you might like included in the agenda, then we're open to those suggestions. Are there any further questions of the consents manager or any commentary? Yes, Councillor McKellar.
I was just wondering, is there any time frame on the Wilkins appeal through the Environment Court? Is there any time frame for an outcome on that?
They don't have set timeframes like we do, the Environment Court, going to, and so we are very much in their hands. We were told that it would be sooner rather than later, however, hearing occurred in late July and still waiting.
Thank you, Timmy. Unless there's anything else, would someone like to move that we...
I'm happy to move.
Thank you. Councillor McKellar, seconded by Councillor Stevens. Thank you. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Carried. Thank you. Thank you, Aurora. Item 2, the environmental compliance report. Manager Simon Mapp.
Tēnā mana, e nā reo, rangatira mai, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou katoa. Good afternoon, councillors. Today, Compliance Division report has been sent through to you. I'll just highlight some of the activities we've been up to. As you probably read, there were 359 aerial discharge permit inspections. So these were dairy effluent discharge permit inspections. And you've got the ratings there of 340 fully compliant, 22 minor issues, 23 3 minor non-compliance and no significant non-compliance located in those flights. The technical team have been busy on 13 industry inspections, 375 industry consent condition audits, and 10 meetings with consent holders. 258 incidents have come in the timeframes, 112 of them to do with air complaints, that can be odour, smoke or dust, 3 coastal, 69 land and 74 to do with water quality. Current situation is we're facing quite a lot of local government official information and requests, and that is taking some team time to actually comply with those. Enforcement outcomes, Whakaahei Dairies Limited were charged with a section 15(1)B, and if you remember, this was the winter grazing event that went through the kindergarten. They had some restorative justice and paid some money to the Kindergarten Association. They were sentenced to the $31,000 fine plus $14,514.70 cost recovery for the kindergarten and a further $2,500 reparation. Koana Limited Partnership and Andrew Crystal were also sentenced on the same day, receiving $52,500 for the farm and $35,000 for the manager, Mr. Crystal. Alphonse Stratton and Southern Centre Dairies also went through on that day, $30,000 for the Southern Centre Dairies Limited, and conviction. The judge's notes have since come through since furnishing this report, and they'll be provided to councillors via email. We continue to work through the 1920 compliance plan, and priority one obviously is water quality, and we've inspected wintering operations, that's 35 wintering pads or barns, 3 feed pads and 5 other types of events. We're still trying to develop the intensive winter grazing app and seeing what fields that has with the new regulations, or what we can do with the new regulations on that. We've completed the inspections of dairy farm. Urban quality consents are monitored and results assessed. Clean fill sites, mining sites and plantation forestry are all in our sites, and we are just increasing our understanding of the plantation forestry for the NES. So we've had some Otago experts come down and teach our guys how to do more compliance monitoring and enforcement around those activities. Priority 2, air quality. So we've looked at identifying high risks, vulnerable communities, high incident recording and airshed location. That's had to be put on hold due to resourcing. Good suppliers continue to supply good dry wood, and we've given, there was a radio promotion with a free firewood giveaway. And the compliance team and a councillor came along, thank you, Councillor Lobo, and stacked that firewood for a young mother and her family. Incidents continue to come in. We continue to triage incidents. That's obviously the triaging has lowered its focus since COVID-19 has gone to level 2. And where possible, we are getting staff to attend low risk category events. And we are dealing with a small percentage of recidivist complainants, and that can put quite a significant amount of pressure on staff. Just on the incidents, we attend incidents and triage them on the information we're given by the complainant at the time. If that information is lacking, as in where the location is, etc., then that may be given a lower priority. Water quantity, we're addressing data issues with large water takes at the moment, and we're completing the low rate water take project, and there's been a severe increase in full compliance in that program since last year. And we're providing advice to water users on how they can lower their water quantity demands. And coastal areas, the whitebait inspection programs are due to start very soon, and we can commencement of the aquaculture inspections as and when resourcing allows. Incidents and enforcement actions are attached.
That's you, thank you. Very encouraging for an increase in compliance with the water take. That's providing data, because it was an issue.
It is providing data, yeah. We've concentrated that on the last 3 years, and I believe in that 3 years we've had a significant increase in full compliance.
Thank you. Councillor Esler?
Thank you. Just wondering, with the enforcement, are they either they're trying to get away with it, they're being careless, they're ignorant, or they're saying, well, we've always done it this way, or is it sort of a mixture of worse things?
Through you, Mr. Chair, I'd rather not comment on what drives people's being non-compliant. Certainly in one of the cases, it was a continuation over many days.
Councillor Beard?
Thank you, Simon. The 258 incidents, this is the winter period. How does that sort of compare with prior years? Are we as tolerant as a province as we used to be, or are we becoming less tolerant with each other in events? So are we seeing more smoke in the sky and engaging with ourselves, or how is that sort of trending? Is that information?
Yeah, through you, Mr. Chair. It's hard to quantify why people give us a call. Obviously, they're complaining about a certain incident. I can say through this particular time, there's a significant decrease in complaints about winter grazing. As you quite rightly point out, during the winter months, we do get a considerable amount of complaints through to do with air quality issues. And that can be stuff like backyard burning, farmers burning off hedge clippings, etc. So in answer to your question, this is about normal. We've got a decrease in wintering. We have an increase in air about this time, and coastal waters normally stay about the same.
So I'm not seeing any change yet on clean air burning, helping and ensuring that maybe there's less smoky nights or smoke events. We're still struggling to get traction there.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Chair, I don't have the information available on how many exceedances we've had in the air sheds. What I can say is our incidents are increasing year upon year, so we're facing more incidents every year, and I think that's through people becoming more educated about air quality issues and their lack of tolerance of smoky chimneys and backyard burns that affect them.
Since we were involved in monitoring the air sheds around Invercargill and Goro, there's been a program of raising public awareness in relation to burning clean products or moving away from open fires and the rest of it. But we've raised public awareness of what the issues might be and the fact that it is injurious to your health. I would suggest, from my observation, that's probably gone on for about 5 years now, that we're reaping the results of that people are more conscious, so they're more willing to. Environment South are interested, we'll ring them up and tell them. Councillor Guyton's next.
Yeah, Simon, I've got a couple of questions that I've written up as well. The first one was regarding your OIA comment earlier on. Was there a theme to those? It sounded as though you're getting more than usual. I just wonder, was there a topic that, in particular, that you could detect, and were they from a particular group, or were they just a generalised incoming?
Thank you, Councillor. Through you, Mr. Chair. No, they were reasonably generalised and not particularly one topic. It was a slight increase, but I suppose the increase on the amount of information that was required was of concern.
Through you, Mr. Chair, we did have a number of Lagoima requests for information around aluminium dross. storage, disposal, and other such matters. That has been an increasing theme, I'd suggest, over the last many months that we've been dealing with, and not just in the compliance area as well.
Thank you, Vin. And Simon, if I could ask my second question, and that is regarding the meeting that was held in Queenstown. I'm not sure you were aware of it, by the activists who were behind the campaign against poor winter grazing management. Have you heard anything from that? Because it's an issue that concerns us most particularly in Southland here, and I wondered if we'd got any feedback either from farmers or from any staff who went. I'm not sure if anybody went from here. Looks like Councillor Stevens may have.
Through you, Mr. Chair, I was aware of the meeting, but that was post the meeting actually happening. So I have had no comment or feedback from them.
Councillor Stevens, is that in relation to the question from Councillor Guyton?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, Councillor McFarlane and I attended the meeting, and there was a slideshow on winter grazing, which certainly looked terrible. And looking at it, I approached the gentleman that was presenting it, and after the presentation, and asked whether it was actually photos from this year, which he said yes. I said, what province? He said Southland, and I said, really, you do have a responsibility to contact Environment Southland, the 0800, which he said he would do the next day. So I mentioned then that I was a councillor and I would be expecting to see something come through, and also NPI should have been contacted also. So I would have to say that some of the photos, and Councillor McPhail could probably back me up on this, looked as though they were last year's. So then I contacted CEO Rob to see if Environment Southland could actually contact this gentleman and actually see if they were this year's, and also if they were in Southland. So I don't know, I haven't heard back. Rob, whether you've heard anything back? Still waiting. Still waiting. Yes, I'm going on the response last year. I think we might be waiting for some time. So I doubt if they were this year's, actually, to be fair.
Thank you.
Through you, Mr. Chair, previous gross supply of photos to be covering geographic areas from South Canterbury South, not just in Southland. Many of them, the photos depict issues of animal welfare rather than environmental of nature. Many of those photos are very, very hard to accurately determine where exactly they are as well. So the supply of gross or bulk photos like that aren't necessarily helpful with actually educating and working with the community around any challenges that may exist in intensive winter grazing.
I'd perhaps refer back to Simon's report, and the result of the aerial inspections will give you an idea of how we've gone. But Councillor McPhail, you're next up.
Well, I'll just add on to David's just said, and I know specifically that there were photos there that I know compliance had gone and had a look from last year, and obviously there was no, the compliance, obviously there hadn't been any enforcement issued, but they're using them saying this is bad winter grazing. So yeah, it's good to have a balanced discussion, and probably luckily there were a few farmers and councillors and different industry groups actually took the opportunity to travel up there to sort of maybe add a wee bit of balance to the discussion, because I would have felt personally could have been fairly one-sided if it hadn't been. But it was actually well behaved meeting, to be honest, and they were quite probably surprised at how many people came. But just to reiterate on the winter grazing, I was just going to ask Simon, the aerial flights and what you've seen, the compliance officers and even the consents or team people that are on the ground, do you feel that within what you've seen, okay, it has been quite dry this year, but you will be able to see good management practices being done too with back fencing, just buffer zones and that. Do you feel that there is there's reasonable uptake of what's going on out there?
through you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, we saw a great improvement on the use of good management practices throughout Southland. Obviously, it's a different year. You're not really comparing apples with apples. The previous year had high rainfall events and snow, as you can say. But on the whole, we did see an improvement in those good management practices.
Councillor Esler.
No,
Not now.
I was just drawing your attention to the fact that Robert wanted to speak.
Oh, okay, thank you. Well, I think, but I think we have to give farmers some credit though after the incidents in the last couple of years, and then to come to this year and have a relatively clean inspection with no significant non-compliance is actually it's a good result, the kind of result we're trying to achieve. So people have taken notice and improving their practice. Are there any other comments, questions from consents manager? Sorry, compliance manager, sorry. If not, would somebody like to move that we receive that report? Seconded by Chairman Horrell. No further discussion, I'll put the motion, please. Say aye if you're in favour. Anyone against? It's carried. Thank you, Simon. So we've got 10 extraordinary and urgent business. There is none, there was none. And public excluded business, there is none today. That's right. So that concludes our meeting. Just a note to participants that there is a workshop commencing shortly for councillors.